Warning. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the personal opinions of Azmat Sherwani and any guest featured on the show. These opinions do not reflect the views of any other organization, Azmat Sherwani, or his guests, who are directly or indirectly affiliated with. All content shared is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not be considered as fact. Any comments made about specific organizations, in particular, are not limited to Uber, AutoCab, iCabbie, Cab9, or Cordic regarding their operation staff or data sharing practices, are purely personal opinions and are not to be taken as factual statements. Please consider this podcast as subjective commentary and not as verified information. Enjoy the show.
What we've got at the moment is we've got silos.
15-year-old customer had been flirting with Cab9 and he moved across to Cab9 and within 2 weeks he said, I need to be back.
But would that not have a negative impact on iCabbie as a commercial business?
That's up to iCabbie, right?
No, but do you think that's a fair comment?
One for the road. One for the road, are you ready? Let us sit and talk, take a sip and talk. Take a sip. One for the road, everybody. Yeah. Let us sit and talk, take a sip.
Lads, welcome. How are you?
Good.
Brilliant. So this is my first ever threesome.
Right.
We're two fellas anyway.
That's what you're admitting to.
That's yeah. That time in Bangkok didn't count. So basically, mate, lovely to have you both on.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. So I obviously wanted to give an opportunity for you guys to be here. A lot going on in the market. Super Yes, Cordic. Just really wanted to hear your story. Like Phil, I've known you best part of 10 years now, I'd say.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
So, yeah, about that, yeah.
So, but Simon, obviously, I think it's quite a new relationship. I wouldn't say you're new to the industry, but ultimately to, should we say, this part of the industry, shall we say, it's a new thing? Because I think you're more of a networks man.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's right.
Brilliant. So before we start, we've got to do the cheers, obviously. Phil's already ploughed straight in with his
I didn't want to spill it like you did all the way
Yeah.
up the stairs.
Brilliant. So cheers to you, mate.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, Simon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Simon. Cheers, Simon.
Let's start with Simon. Simon, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story for the people in the industry who don't know you? So first of all, if you could let everybody know your current position and also your background. I know about Halo, so how you came to be with us today.
So first of all, thank you for having us. It's great to be here. So I've been at Cordic now for just over a year. I joined, I think it was 3 weeks before the last PHDM, and I now run the business as the CEO. And how I ended up here, I guess my background and the story that kind of led me to here. I founded 3 businesses of my own. One was a very early fintech business that was eventually sold to the largest online broker-dealer in the US. One's a genealogy business and one died very early on the runway. But when I left my fintech business was around 2011, and I was looking around seeing what was going on in startup land. And I came across this company called Uber. At that point, they were only on the West Coast and they were doing limousines, black cars. And I was blown away by the fact that they'd taken a smartphone, which, remember, back in 2010, 2011, was still pretty new, and created a really compelling user experience on it, essentially allowing you to get a cab by remote control. And when I saw that, I thought, this is the business I want to be in. It's a big market. And I was clearly wanted to see what was going on in the UK. And I saw there was this little startup called Halo that was just getting going, doing exactly the same thing, but with licensed taxi drivers, black cab drivers in London.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to those founders, and we hit it off. And they asked if I would come and run the business in the UK. And obviously we had, at that time, ambitions to go global. And and that was the start. And so I had a great time at Halo, and we can maybe touch on that another time. But that 2.5 years, I guess I built the biggest competitor to Uber at that time in London. And really enjoyed the experience of, frankly, getting a passenger from A to B sounds so simple, but actually really complex. Anyway, a decade, when I left Halo, I did a bunch of other things, and then a decade passes and I get a call from a headhunter pitching me Cordic. I initially I was kind of like, well, I've kind of done taxes, but they persuaded me to come and meet Phil. And when Phil sold me the vision of what they wanted to do with Cordic and Cab Fusion, I was sold.
So Phil, there's quite a bit of confusion in terms of shareholdings, Cordic, Super Yes, all that kind of stuff. So you were obviously owner of Abacars in Warrington.
Yeah.
I've been for a number of years. Then you got involved in Cab Guru and all that kind. Can you just tell us the same thing of how you've become to where you are now and what your current position is and all that kind of stuff as well, please?
Yeah, sure. So I started Abacars 31 years ago this month, actually, in Warrington. Warrington was wide open at that time, and we built the business, and the business grew really well, rapidly. Week 3, and away it went really well. And then COVID came along. We had the COVID problems and all the rest of it. But in between that time, we were with AutoCab for a long time, but we stayed with the same system. We bought Crown Cars. We had a different system, a different version of AutoCab, but we stayed on the old AutoCab. And then for a long time afterwards, we looked around for another system.
Yeah.
Okay, and we looked and we found Cordic, and I was really interested in Cordic PDAs and all the technology. We had a real good look at it. I don't want to really go into all the system stuff, but it was really, really good, and we trusted it. Anyway, we then eventually bought Cordic and put Cordic in 2014. 2015, Farah, who was the then owner of Cordic, invited people to come along to something called Cab Guru, and he had one up here at Manchester over at Trafford Centre there, and one at the down in London at Heathrow. So we went to the Heathrow one because there was away on the other one, and I went down there, and there's like 200 guys in the room, and Farah rolls this phone up, and we got this called Cab Guru, and I heard all about Uber, and I didn't know anything about Uber. I heard the name, but know anything about it. But what I then heard with these lads we're all talking to is that business were getting wiped out in London because of it, yeah? So they were really, really starting to struggle. I thought, gosh, we have no business left here. Okay? Yeah. So I decided then to invest into Cab Guru, as it were, then, because Farah did a fundraising, that's what we did. And we went through that process, and we raised enough. And I thought, well, I need to put enough in here to try and get onto a board. Didn't know what a board was, yeah. But try and get into it so I can see what's going on. And then we did that, and then and away things went. We started to roll the Cab Guru app out. Need deep pockets to fight Uber. That's one of the things we first learned. Around the board, you started meeting other people, bigger business, such as Joe Poley, and you've got Esty and Tom, people like this. And Keith was involved on the board with us, and we looked at what we were doing down there, and then we went through the process of that, board meetings, doing this, doing that. During the course of that, I actually went out chatting to James Bradley. He's become a good friend, really good business over in Liverpool, yeah. Mm-hmm. James been on here, hasn't he? Yeah.
He has, mate.
And beyond that, then what happened was Cordic then sold to investors. Okay, Oakfield. So that's Michael. Michael's a really good guy, really committed and interested, very interested in the business. Yeah, easy to work with. We started to work with them guys, and then an opportunity came up where we asked to do, was there a possibility if we could do something with the business, and we did. And then what happened not long ago was that we acquired Cordic. So there was Cab Guru and there was Cordic, and the guys who had bought Cordic owned the whole of Cordic and 51% of Cab Guru. So when we did this time, we invested, and the share structure changed where it became more operator than it was VC. Yeah, okay. Nice. Which everybody's happy with and works really well. Yeah. And that's why we can say that we're operators for operators. Mm-hmm. On the board, I'm probably the most active director. Joe does a lot. We all do a lot, yeah. So Joe's the chairman and does a great job. And I'm vice chairman and do what I can and try and support Simon and that. We went out looking for CEO. One of the provisos for me on the board was that we went out and found a really good CEO. It took us some time to do. And we were very, very lucky, in my opinion, to meet Simon. I listened to Simon's story. There's a lot more to it than that, yeah. Do I believe he's the right man for the job? 150% I believe he's the right man for the job. And not just because he's sat here, because of his experience, because he's took on the dream that we've got. So where I did a period of being the interim CEO while we found Simon, it was always the intention to bring a professional in with a proven track record, and that's where we got Simon. And that's where we are now.
The people you have within the business as well are brilliant, really, really great members of the industry. For example, you mentioned Idris before. I think he's an incredibly bright guy, one of the brightest guys in our industry.
Sure.
Vino, I absolutely love. Lights up any room he's in. You know what I mean? Absolutely brilliant. And you brought on my old pal Wrigley as well.
Yeah, so Chris came into the business because one of the things that was surprising really about Cordic, and we obviously looked at this when we were doing the deals, etc., was that it was like the best unkept secret, if that's the way to put it. We were undersold. So yes, we were good in London, but the way that Farah used to have it was that you had to go down to Cambridge. So when you worked at AutoCab, the AutoCab guys used to come knocking on your door, didn't they?
Yeah,
you used to see them, whereas the Cordic one, it was like you used to have to go down and see these guys like a pedestal. So a lot of the northern industry didn't really know about it and didn't really know about the capabilities of it, yeah? So when I looked around and thought, well, we need to bring somebody into sales, yeah? Chris Wrigley, natural choice, because Chris has got a really, really good reputation. He's not somebody who'll come along. There's other guys out there as well that have got great reputations. But Chris has got a solid reputation in that what you see is what you get with Chris. He would never badmouth anybody. He's very reserved in the way he does it, yeah? So we brought Chris in, and Chris is being successful in what he's doing, and he's helping us to grow and expand in our sales of the dispatch.
I worked with Chris for a long time, and he is, again, one of the funniest people I've ever met. But also, when it comes down to actual skill set, I would honestly say he is one of the best salespeople out there. He's absolutely phenomenal at what he does. And I think that's a great hire for you.
He believes in what we're doing because he was employed in a really good job.
Yeah.
And when I approached him, he was happy to come. So I can't thank Chris enough for that. It's really good.
Well, he came for you, mate. So when I spoke to him about it, he specifically outright said, "Look, I believe in Phil. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that for him." So take it as a criticism or constructive, if it would be. I don't think you guys shout out enough about companies that you guys are bringing on, okay?
Yeah.
Now, would you agree with that, Simon?
Yeah, look, I think this coming in as the new guy, I think that what we do is fantastic.
Yeah.
And obviously the guys that know about us absolutely love us. Most of our customers love us. But yeah, one of the things that we don't do, which I think many of our competitors actually do very well, is they shout and they're proud about their systems as we are, but they tell the world. And we haven't done a good enough job of doing that. And of course, we want to get better at that.
And do you think that's affected the perception in the market of where you guys rank? Because ultimately, it's always been a 3-horse race, or in terms of dispatch, with AutoCab, iCabby, and Cordic. Then obviously now, obviously Cab 9 has emerged as well. They've come in and they've and like I said, credit to them, they've done well. But do you see, in terms of, let's say, for example, like the top 50 largest fleets, okay, right? The number of fleets that you've got in that top 50, I wouldn't say it's up there with the others. Do you think do you think there's a reason for that, or do you think that people are not giving you the opportunity you deserve? What do you think is actually going on?
Well, I think some of that, and obviously Simon will probably want to answer that differently as well. I think that some of that is what I said before. We were undersold. Yeah. Okay. So your Cab 9 do a great job in advertising. Every time they get somebody, they're up there and they tell the world, and they do a good job like that. A lot of the bigger fleets, as me and you know, are in this part of the world. You've got your James, you had Amber Cars over at Leeds. You've got Ian Shanks you've got a lot of the bigger fleets are up here. So they've sort of targeted them areas. London is where we do very well, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we're the leading dispatch provider in London, but obviously it's a different market from the rest.
What's really been surprising for me, we were doing our a ring around because we were going to do a list again of where we're at. The amount of people who have turned around to me and said they're currently AutoCab fleets, but let's say they are no longer going to be because of what's going on. So I get it, and I totally get it. So let me ask you this, Simon, is one for you. So if you look at certain fleets. So for example, Take Me, right? Okay, so Take Me did a big switch, David Hunter, etc. Were you guys in for that? Were you in the running for it, do you think?
We talked with Dave, got a lot of respect for Dave and what they're doing with their business there and the way they're building it. And Dave had the dilemma of he needed to be able to control his fleets. Yeah. And he had AutoCab and he had iCab, and he talked to us and he talked to all three of them.
Yeah.
I think Dave's made the decision there on the basis of probably what he considers to be the most applicable to his business at the moment. And if you've got 50% on one and 50% on another, does it make sense to move both of them to say the likes of Cordic or Cab 9?
Yeah.
Or is it better to do a deal that works where he's only dealing with half the headache, if you like?
Yeah.
That's probably the way that they've done it.
Yeah, so 2 points. I'll say, Rachel Dale, she's had, I think, 4 nominations this year for Woman of the Year at our awards, right? So currently. And I basically said to her, Like that's absolutely incredible. Like, we'd never see that many coming through. So that's already, by the way, and so that's mega. Autocab and iCabby's ownership, as much as I've been negative about the Autocab ownership of Uber, it has allowed them to have a ridiculous amount of investment into their products, okay?
Right. Yeah.
And so has iCabby. So if you look at do you know what I mean? The Google partnership. I mean, they will plow a few million quid a year into R&D, over 100 developer, all this kind of. Do you know what I mean? They've got massive teams, and the only way, like obviously, that was all made possible was because of their investment. So everybody knows that Renault acquired iCabby to sell vehicles, right? They wanted to sell electric cars or what they want to sell next, and they can do that into the market, and they're doing that now. That's fine. Everybody knew, and that was the end goal. Uber, me and you've spoken about it countless times. I believe they wanted to get into the market, find out areas they can infiltrate, and they're doing that now worldwide. Okay, there could be a potential acquisition of you guys by a key player. Am I right?
No.
Why is that?
If you look at the point where you've just said about the investment that Autocab are making into all their products, and they've got some really good products, yeah?
Yeah.
But that sort of contradicts what we spoke about earlier, where you're saying a lot of their customers are unhappy. So has that worked for them? No, it's not because of the ownership.
Yeah, no, the Autocab, I don't believe that that anybody is leaving Autocab because of the product or what they've done, right? Ultimately, I've been asked by an Autocab director previously, when they were coming to our shows and doing stuff, what do we need to do to get the market back? And I said, stop being owned by Uber,
Exactly,
right? Because that's it, right? It's ultimately, they're not going to...
Can I ask you the question then?
Go on, mate.
Can I ask you the question then? In that, have Uber got what they needed out of Autocab?
Have what, sorry?
Uber already got what they need out of Autocab. And is Autocab somebody that could be up for sale?
Yes, they could be, yeah. So 100%. So in the UK, have they got what they needed? Yeah. Totally. And now what they're doing is getting what they need internationally. So again, I've mentioned it on previous podcasts, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but ultimately they're about to do a colossal deal in the United States, where they're literally offering millions of dollars worth of Uber work, and people will be like, well, I can't turn that down.
That's right.
So do you know what I mean? And because they're and the same thing across Europe. So once they've got that covered as well, and I've said it previously, they'll either turn them off or they'll flip them. So yeah, they could do. But ultimately, what is to stop I'm not saying ride hailer, because I know you well enough to know I don't think that would happen. But what I'm saying is, what if a Daimler or someone like that comes along and says, yeah, like we want to acquire you guys?
Let me try and answer that question,
please.
and answer it pretty clearly, right? Why did I join this business? I joined this business in the same way that I joined Halo. The reason I picked Halo, the fantastic thing about the founders of Halo is they realized they couldn't build this business if they didn't have black cab drivers who were their customer as part of the business. So they brought in 3 driver founders, 3 people who still remain friends of mine today. And when I first met Phil and some of the other members of the board, it reminded me of that time. So what we have here is a business that's majority owned by fleet owners, right, who are passionate about the trade, want to, believe that there's a way to thrive in a ride-hailing world. And we're on a mission, and we have a very clear plan and a strategy to execute that, which is to provide the tools for fleets to take on ride hail. So, and we're right at the start of that. And we got a really exciting opportunity, which I'm sure we'll get onto when we talk about Super Yes. And so we're not interested in talking to anyone else about being acquired. We're interested in actually solving the biggest problem that fleets have today, which is that they are having to compete many of them have upped their game, but they're having to compete against a multi-billion-dollar Goliath that has a bottomless pit of cash. And they're having to adapt, and they have challenges that I'm sure we'll get onto to do that. And of course, that business owns one of our competitors. Yeah. So we're very keen. We're focused. We're that all of our shareholders are fully behind us in terms of executing on the plan that we have.
So let's say, for example, if you were to get an offer from someone big tomorrow, okay, how does it work? Is there someone who has majority who can make the decision, or everybody else needs to be on board, or how would that work?
Can I answer that one?
Gosh, come on.
We're on the board. It's one man, one vote. Okay, so The operators own the larger share.
Yeah.
The majority shareholder is Michael and Oakfield, but we all have respect. It's one man, one vote. So
Nice.
it's not something that somebody could come along and force it. It's what would be best for the company, and there's nothing like that occurring.
So we're majority owned by fleet owners, right? And in the same way of any business, whether it's a public business or a private business, it's not down to a single individual. It's down to the majority of the shareholders, and that's no different for us. And the majority of our shareholders are people
Fleets.
like Phil that own fleets.
Fleets, yeah.
As you guys are aware, because I've obviously made you guys aware very early on about my relationship with iCabby and me doing, and I think you said it yourself to me that I didn't come in under any disguises at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? All up front,
yeah.
All up front, right? So I was doing, and I recently sold a business. We just signed a business, and they're like large. I mean, over a couple of thousand cars, in mainland Europe. I won't say where it is because I'll give it away, but I was up against Autocab, and then I think the final round, because it was, and also Cab 9. I think the final round went to Cab 9, and then managed to get it over the line. Why wasn't Cordic pitching for that business or international? I think this might be one for you, Simon. Why isn't Cordic pitching for large European fleets? Because I speak to European fleets every day, and I think about 2 or 3 of them are going, oh, I used to be on Cordic, and I wouldn't have had a clue, by the way, right? So you've obviously had a European presence. The money that you can make for them, because what they pay you per car per week compared to the UK is triple, right? Right, okay. Yeah. So, Simon, why aren't you going after that big business?
Yeah, so look, it's a great question, and I'll give you a simple answer. And yeah, the simple answer is, and you alluded to it right up top, right? We're a small business compared to Autocab and iCabby. We don't have a bottomless pit of resources, so we have to make choices, and we make choices around the things that are going to be what we believe to be the best for our business. And so, if you see where we are today, we've got a really good kernel of customers in the UK. We think there's a big opportunity for us to continue to grow that business in the UK, but we are focused on not only doing that, but building the Super Yes network in the UK, because we think fundamentally, if fleets, continue to consolidate and disappear, we won't exist. No dispatch systems exist. So we're tackling the biggest problem that fleets face today in the UK, and that's where we are putting our chips, if you like.
In terms of maintaining and the growth of Cordic, again, I started this conversation by saying what a robust and solid product it was, okay? I've spoken to you guys previously, and I'd said to you, great product, and this is, I think, just when you'd started, right? And I think the aesthetics need working on and making it aesthetic, and I think you've done that. Like, ultimately, you guys have been working on it and stuff like that. So, because
side by side, it's very, very similar to the iCabby.
I would say so. I think, but I mean, because a lot of people previously would say, "Oh, the screen looks old-fashioned" and all this kind of stuff. But like I said, credit where credit's due. I think you guys, aesthetics-wise, you guys have brought it up to where it needs to be. Focusing on Super Yes, okay, and you said it yourself about not having the unlimited pit of cash that the others may have because of their backing, etc. How do you compete then with features? For example, when iCabby acquired MoveX, came out with the Move AI product, Autocab immediately came up with something to do with ride sharing and being able to work like that. I'm just trying to work out, like, as we progress and move forward in the market, and they keep knocking out features and stuff like that, how do you compete?
Okay, it's a really important question. I mean, fundamentally, this isn't a feature war, right? And I think how we may be different. Again, I don't know how they operate, but for us, this is not about features. If you think about dispatch systems and how they've evolved over the course of the last decade, they're completely different from where they were, 10, 15 years ago. I fundamentally think that dispatch as a problem is broadly solved. Yes, can we make improvements to help businesses grow? For sure, but they're going to be incremental things rather than transformational things. So what we're doing, rather than sitting in a room and coming up with the next greatest feature that we could build in our system, we're listening to what our customers want. And let's be clear, there are things that our customers want that we need to focus on today, to overcome some of the challenges that they see with our system today. And we're answering those questions. I'm less worried about being in a race with iCabby or AutoCab, what I'm interested in is giving value to fleets in terms of both my customers and customers that want to come and join us, in terms of related to things that matter to them. So how do they acquire customers? How do they retain drivers? How do they keep growing? Rather than some shiny new feature, which may or may not deliver a benefit. And if it will deliver a benefit, then of course we'll look at that. But we're focusing on what are our customers' problems and how do we solve those problems, rather than looking across the road at our competitors and say, oh, they've got that button, we need to build a better button. So we had a 15-year-old customer. Unfortunately, I can't name them today, but very shortly we will. 15-year-old customer had been flirting with Cab9. Cab9 do a great job at pitching their product, and I think they do some really good things. And he moved across to Cab9, and within 2 weeks, he said, I need to be back. And why did that happen? Well, I mean, we could have done a better job in hindsight, over the longer term. But Rachel, as you mentioned before, has spent a lot of time with this particular operator. Now he understands how Cab9 works, showing him the capabilities of Cordic that he didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge for us, right? Some of our customers have had the system. So this is things that we need to do better, right?
Yeah.
Some of our customers have had our system for a long time, and we've built, and when they onboarded with us, they had some training, and then they may not have had any training since, right? And we may not have shouted enough about the things that we've released, but they just don't know what the capabilities of the system are. So now Rachel is here to show them. And I'll give you, I guess, the way to, discern how we're different from, and again, it's just a different approach. One's not better than the other. Cab9 does a really good job of expressing a feature through a button or something that's very easy to understand. Whereas because our heritage is in London, and this goes back to the original founders, and the market in London is very sophisticated, and you've got operators that have different operating models, the founders decided to build a system that was highly flexible. So what we have is, we might have the same feature as Cab9, but it's highly customizable, which also makes it a bit more complicated for the fleets to configure in the first place. So our job is to do a better job at explaining those things to fleets. And a really good example of how that's worked is with this very significant fleet that's come back to us after 2 weeks of leaving, having been with us for 15 years.
Can I just give you something about Rachel? So when Rachel came into the business, I thought that Simon was going to put in a different role. And when he put her in the role that Rachel's in, I thought, how's that going to work? I'm not sure about that. But she's doing a brilliant job. We've used her. I'd love her to come into my business and give us full help, but I'd rather go and see the customers. But we've reached out to her twice, and what she's given us is like eye-opening. Yeah, so I've got to, pat him on the back. I'm not going to do it here, for bringing Rachel in.
And to be clear, it's
really, really good.
And to be clear, she's not with us purely to help the fleets get the most out of our system. She's here to help fleets grow. Yeah. So for example, if they want to expand into school contracts and they don't know how to do it, she's had years of experience doing tendering or all that kind of stuff. And she will help them do that. If they want help with driver onboarding and retention and programs around that, she's done that for 10 years because she's been an operator. So she's helping operators doing that, all for free for our customers.
It's just like a CX kind of role.
I would say it's way more than CX because she's been an operator. So it's an operator talking to an operator. It's not some junior person that maybe has been in the role a few years. She's actually lived and breathed this. So she's got gravitas when she's going to talk to operators because she's done it.
Going back to Cab9 operator coming back, can you tell me a little bit more about their reasons behind it?
Fundamentally, I'm not going to diss Cab9. I think Cab9's got a good system, but I think what they realised, obviously there was obviously something that convinced them to go and try Cab9. They were obviously frustrated with some things with our system, and Cab9 do a great job at showing them new features. But once they actually used it in a practical sense, they realized it wasn't for them, and they missed some of the capability that we had that Cab9 didn't. The
reason I was asking that is because I'm aware they've won a couple of your customers, right? And another thing is as well that when fleets do switch over to them, and again, I've commented previously, they've got this great sense of pride and community feel, and they do really well at bringing that person into this part of a family kind of unit, so that for me was quite surprising, and ultimately I wanted to know more about how.
This happens all the time. I think that ultimately we all as dispatch providers have to accept that customers will choose. It's a bit like cars, right? Nobody buys the same car, right? Everyone has they like a different color or different shape or a different engine. And it's the same with dispatch systems. People have their own particular operating model. So the way they operate, they like particular things about systems and they're going to choose. And we're not going to win everyone in the same way that iCabby or Cab9 or AutoCab aren't going to win. And that's okay. And we should accept that. What we're focusing on is listening to what people want and trying to focus our energies on prioritizing delivery of the things that are going to have the most impact to those fleets.
We have to talk about the networks. So rather than jumping straight into Super Yes, I'd like to know, I think, Phil, you're probably the best one to start this off, right? To get me an idea of, because there is the work share, because, and again, I don't understand the differences, and I'm sure you can educate me, because you got what the Keen Group had started out with the work share, except they were sharing work, and then obviously Cab Guru came about. I always was told Cab Guru is Cordic's ride, right? Do you remember the ride operators that were on? Yeah, that's what I mean. So could you just, so before we delve into Super Yes, because I would like, and I'll ask a very direct question. I think it's important for the industry to understand why Cordic thinks it's qualified to be able to handle the network for the industry. Does that make sense?
If all cab companies in the country, right, could just share work, like me and you phoning each other on O2 and EE, and they could just share the work and stay on their own dispatch systems, that'd be a really good thing. That in itself would be Uber-like, yeah? If we could share work that's overflowing. Doesn't mean city to city, because most of the work is local work that you need help with, yeah? That alone then would help the company survive and become successful, which in turn helps the dispatchers become successful.
Yeah.
What we've got at the moment is we've got silos, which is, it's a bit like O2 saying, no, you can't phone an EE customer, or go into the bank and you can't get your money out on NatWest because you're a Lloyds customer. Yeah. This is like the 21st century, whatever century we're in, and you've got to look at it. Why aren't we doing that? You know, a customer out there, if I arrive in Manchester now and I come from Salford, if I look for the company down, I'm probably going to look at streetcars. Yeah. Streetcars can't get me. I'm going to think, who's next? So before Cab Guru, there's debate who sort of came up with the idea of job sharing first. I brought two lads down from, I brought Lee from SRC and I brought Jason from A1 over in Liverpool down. Yeah. And I remember it to this day that the lads had really bad colds. They came down and they wanted to do job sharing between them. Okay. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, Farah just didn't see what it was. Okay. Yeah. So Farah just said no to the guys. And they knocked on the door and they got the wrong answer back from Farah. Okay. He was a bit short with them really on what he did. Then a while went past and then Keith had a similar idea and him and Tom's a good friend as well as Keith, yeah. And they went to Farah and they said, we'd like to share jobs. Okay. So Farah set this system up and Keith will tell you the story of all this. And job sharing, job pool was born there. Yeah. And what happens is, for them years, jobs have gone between systems where if it's an excess job, I can't cover it, throw it into the pool, somebody else will pick it up. Yeah. Okay. And that works. So that proves job sharing.
And it was Cordic Farah who created that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's internal, solid.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
I mean, if you go back further, Farah was the first one ever in the country I'm not sure the country or the world, to have a PDA.
All right.
Yeah,
okay.
so he's really way ahead of.
Sorry, just for everyone who's listening who doesn't know, Farah was the founder of Cordic.
That's right. Yeah.
Right,
sorry, guys, yeah. Not to be mixed with Fowler. Fowler was the great guy over at AutoCab. Yeah. So that's where that came from. Okay. Then along comes Cab Guru, and what Cab Guru was an app potentially to compete against Uber. Okay. But it was a comparison app, and basically what you could do is if there was like 5 fleets in your area, A, B, C, D, just say for example, rather than give them names, A might put a price on 11.20, B might put a price on of 13.20, and so on. And then you'd also have times, well, how long it's going to take which one to come. And you could choose which one you wanted. Okay. So it's a great idea. And it worked to a degree, but to promote it more and more, you were up against Uber, and Uber had deep pockets, yeah?
How many members did you have on Cab Guru?
That's a really good question, that. I can't tell you, I feel, without going back to Idris and asking Idris. But it got to the point where it needed a lot more money thrown at it.
What I mean is, you had coverage. Did you have coverage?
Yeah, we had
national
coverage, yeah. So it didn't affect what's termed as the job pool, and we had multi-fleet, yeah. So all that operates, but so Cab Guru was Cab Guru, and Cab Guru kept running. I'll give you a really good thing about Cab Guru, right? You know, right? Passenger cars, don't you?
Yeah, of course I know.
Okay,
yeah.
So Ray's at Passenger Cars, he's got Cab Guru, and obviously we're Cab Guru, yeah. And Ray used to send, and I never found this out till one day. I just looked at it, and Ray never told me about this. And he's a great lad. What Ray does is he's near the airport, isn't he? South Manchester, and he gets people who want to go to the train station to go to London, and he sends them to, not all of them obviously, rather than Piccadilly, which you think you would do, he sends them to Banquay train station. Well, you're not Warrington in the traffic we have,
Yeah, of course.
So he sends them there. But Ray had the problem that in the evening he couldn't get them out because Warrington's a nightmare to send a car to at that time of the night. Take you an hour to get in and out. So he used to just book them on Cab Guru as a cash customer, and we went to pick them up. So effectively, that was job sharing via technology.
Yeah.
And he didn't even tell me about it. Just something happened where he recognised it, and I said, "Is that what you're doing?" He said, "Yeah, we do it all the time, Phil."
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that helps him keep his cars in the area he wanted, without upsetting and dragging them all across. And he got his customers picked up, and never once did we have a complaint on it from any of his customers or even Ray. So that bit of job sharing works, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a different type of job sharing that we use Cab Guru for.
Now, Bob said the comments that he made were that he felt that what you guys were putting out in the groups, okay, that we are doing it for the industry, wasn't right. And his comments were more around the fact that this was like you guys had lost some fleets and it was a revenue stream that you had to explore because it was like a survival mode, or you needed to get.
Fundamentally, we've listened to fleets. Fleets are telling us that they want this. And it's a bit bizarre to me that a supplier will tell a customer what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. If fleets are saying, listen, we want to share jobs, and we want to share jobs with our neighbour, and that neighbour happens to be on a different dispatch system, why should the supplier say you can't do that? And let's go back to the problem, right? The problem is we are the biggest dispatch. We've got the biggest market share in London, right? We've got about 10,000 drivers in London, and we've been job sharing for nearly a decade. But Uber have got 60,000 drivers in London. So if the independent trade wants to thrive against Uber, and it supplies the biggest challenge. And if you've only got, and we're the biggest, and we've only got a fraction of what Uber has, it's not enough. And the learning for me, and I've built marketplace now, my fourth marketplace that I will be building. What you see is it's all about liquidity of supply, and none of us. So even though if you look at the country as a whole, so 60,000 Uber drivers in London, 120,000 right across the UK. iCabby purport to have about 50,000 or access to 50,000 drivers across the UK, and AutoCab, let's say it's a similar-ish number. However, in total, across private hire and Hackney, there are 350,000 independent drivers that are not working for ride hail. So if you think about, if you want to compete city by city, town by town against Uber, no single dispatch provider has relationships with every single fleet in that country, in that town or city. So if you want to access the most suppliers possible to make this work and compete on a level playing field with Uber, the only way to do it is through open sharing. So allowing a fleet to share with any fleet, irrespective of what dispatch system they're on. This has got nothing to do, and look, Bob will have his reasons for saying what he did. It's got nothing to do with us building a new revenue stream. I go back to what I said right at the beginning. I've come into this business, and I have, based on, lots of conversations with the board, and I've set a strategy. And what we're doing is we're providing the tools to take on ride hail, and we're focusing on the biggest problems that the industry faces. And we believe that the biggest problem that the industry faces is attracting and retaining drivers.
Yeah.
And if we don't solve that problem as a dispatch provider for our customers, and we cannot solve that problem, then the trade is going to continue to struggle and eventually decline versus Uber. And that's not good for us, and it's not good for our competitors. So that's why we're doing it. Of course, there's a business opportunity. We're not doing it for charity, but we're doing it because we're owned by operators. They believe in this trade, and we believe that this is the answer to the biggest problem that the trade faces today.
I think another thing there on Bob, I'll get on with Bob really well with Monakesh. Really great guy. I think, if I've said something wrong here, Bob, forgive me. But I think when Bob was on his podcast, I think there's been a couple of wrong terminology used when fleets were trying to be engaged and say, get your dispatchers to change it. And I think Bob was upset by that. And if it was, I apologise for that, because that's not the company. And I don't know where the remarks came from.
It's not just Bob though, Phil. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, ultimately, I would say that the other dispatchers, I'm not going to speak for all of them, I know 2 for certain are pissed off about this, right? Okay.
But are we wrong to suggest though that you need to tell your dispatcher that this is a good idea?
I don't know. That was gonna be my next question, and that was like, do you think you did you went about it the right way? So did you approach all 3 of the other big? I mean, obviously there's like loads of dispatchers. Well, let's talk about the other 3 main ones, right? Did you approach them all and say, we want to work with you and all, and then try the front door route, shall we say? Did we do that?
Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
So it's happened before I arrived.
Yeah.
And it's happened since. So when I arrived, one of the first things I did was get on the phone with Mick. In fact, I've spoken to Mick 2 or 3 times about this. Had the same conversation with Tarpit at Cab 9. We haven't talked to our friends at AutoCab, but absolutely, we've tried to, and equally, we've been very open about this, because your question before, I think, was, why do you think you're the right guys to do this? And maybe what was behind your question is, well, you own a dispatch system.
Yeah, that was my question.
And I kind of figured that might have been the question. Well, look, 2 things. First of all, we pioneered this, right? And I've built, as I say, this is my 4th marketplace. I built the biggest competitor to Uber in London. So I think I understand. I don't have a big ego, but I understand what I'm talking about. And I know that none of us, despite what they believe, none of us can do it on their own. And so for us, we've been listening to customers. We've gone through the front door. They've said no. And we've been talking to fleets. And fleets said, look, we want this, and we don't understand. We don't understand why the dispatch companies won't allow us to do this. As Phil said, imagine a world where you were on Vodafone and I was on EE and you couldn't call me. I mean, it's just bonkers in the 21st century.
Yeah, one of the things about the qualified bit is we've been out speaking to some of the big guys. I've mentioned a couple of names there. And we spoke with Andy, because he's a leading light in the industry.
Andy Pennock.
Andy Pennock, yeah.
Okay.
And why did we go see Andy? Because we want to chat to him. And apart from being a great guy, he's a straight talker.
Yeah, yeah.
If he thinks it's the wrong thing, he's going to tell you it's the wrong thing. There's no 2 ways about it, yeah? And in essence, what Andy said is he can't understand why the dispatchers aren't doing this. It makes sense for the industry, yeah? Okay, he said more than that, but I don't want to say something that I might trip myself up, because I won't want to embarrass Andy in any way whatsoever. Yeah. But does Andy think it's the right thing? He does.
Yeah, but do you see the concern though? Again, I think you hit the nail on the head about the fact that you guys also are involved in a dispatch system. Okay, so ultimately, I think I said initially, the first meeting you and I ever had, and I said, do you think you guys are going about the right way? Do you not think it would have been better if all the dispatchers had equal shares into a network and you all owned it, right? And you all could share work, and then if you went along and flipped it after a few years or did whatever you did, then there's a commercial equal interest for everybody. Did you explore that?
Yeah, so look, so I'll answer that question directly, but just before I do, let's go back to this idea that we are in competition with dispatch. And as I've said, we can't all expect to win every deal, right? But we are competitors, and that's how it is. But if you think about the argument around this, actually doesn't make sense, because today, because of close sharing, if someone wants to share and they really passionately feel about sharing, and the people that they need to share with are on a particular dispatch system, they've got to move to a different dispatch system in order to share. The beauty of open sharing is that you can stay on whichever dispatch system suits your particular needs and share. So that's the first thing. So the logic of being a competitive dispatch just doesn't hold true whatsoever anyway. But to answer your second question directly around the ownership and the incentives, absolutely. We've had the conversation multiple times pre-me and since I've arrived with particularly with iCabby and the leadership of iCabby. And look, we would be willing, and we still are, even though now we've solved the problem technologically without needing to work with these guys. We believe that this thing is so important for the trade that we're willing to carve out this product into a new entity. But again, we've been told that they have other priorities, and look, that's completely within their gift and their rights to do so. But you'd have to ask them why.
So just to clarify, you said if that you would still be interested in a joint effort with the other dispatchers?
We're very open to having conversations that make commercial sense to all parties.
Yeah.
Right. For the good of us, for the good of them, and for the good of the trade.
How do I ever get a job covered in Warrington? They link with us. And that's how you get. And I've not had to change systems because I'm not changing systems. Yeah?
That's the
But they get the coverage. And what from a helicopter position, why wouldn't companies do that?
No, I get that, but I think it's like, do you know when you mentioned there about changing systems and stuff like that? I think the comments that have been made, and by the way, this is not just going on Bob Nixon. You've got to understand that every time one of these goes out, my phone goes blah, 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 blah,
I'm sure
blah,
it does,
blah,
mate.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Different people commenting and giving their opinions and stuff like that. So ultimately, after Bob's went out, the feedback on the about Super Yes and all that was people saying that out of the 4 now, in terms of, and I don't want you to divulge your numbers and stuff because it's that's absolutely fine, but ultimately that out of the 4 who is potentially now the smallest player out of the 4 in terms of numbers wise, controlling the biggest thing that would be in the industry, which would be everyone sharing work together and they get control of that, or they're the ones who would pioneer that, and that's what people were saying, that doesn't make sense to them.
Look, ultimately, again, I go back to first of all, we've said, and I'll say it again for the second time, right? As I've said it directly to Mick Tope on multiple occasions, we're willing to have a conversation about that stuff. But irrespective of that, why is it like who would be saying, the only people that would be saying, oh, it doesn't make sense for one particular company to own this network, would be our competitors, right? Fleets want this. They don't care who provides it. They want it.
Yeah.
And why is it that we as suppliers to fleet operators should get in their way and say, no, you can't have it? I mean, in any other industry, in any other business, if a supplier refused to do something for a customer, the customer would leave.
I have a sales outsourcing company, right? So people pay me to sell their products for them into the industry. Now, a problem that I have is that when somebody comes to me and goes, "Oh, Azmat, here's a load of cash," and I'm thinking, "Oh, this will be great revenue for me and my business," I've got to come to people like yourselves and your Micks and Tarpits and Saffers and go, "Oh, please, can we have integration? Because I can't sell into the industry until I've got that, unless I've got that integration." There have been people who've, I hope they don't mind me bringing this up, but do you remember the guys at PostTag? PostTag, yeah. Right, so I don't know if you guys work with them or not, but PostTag came to the industry and they wanted to do a deal with us. And lovely guys, really, really lovely guys. And it's all gone quiet for them. They plowed a load of money, sponsoring events, doing all this kind of stuff to try and speak to the dispatchers. Because they weren't interested, unfortunately, I don't think they've had the impact on the market that they could have had. And there's obviously other products I've been involved in. AirPay, for example, if AirPay was open to Cordic and AutoCab or whatever. And this is what I'm saying. So ultimately, it's the dispatchers who kind of, and again, I'm not agreeing with it, kind of have the keys to the market almost.
I think I'm going to disagree with you here, Azmat. Right. And I've met the guys at PostTag, and I think they're great, and I think their product's very good, and I know Addison Lee uses it, and they rate it. It's very different, right? That's someone that's come out with a new software product that's trying to get into the market. Now, if our customers came to us en masse and said, "Look, we really need this thing," then that would be something we would do. And ultimately, if we make the decision not to do that, and one of our competitors does, and it's really important to those customers, they will leave for that dispatch system. I think that's a very different thing for a supplier coming and trying to get into the market than it is the fleets themselves saying, "Look, I need to do this in order to survive and thrive in a ride-hailing world." And their dispatch system, which Andy Pennock said, I think, on the podcast, is basically the brains that runs your business. For the supplier of that brains to basically turn around and say, "Really sorry, but we can't allow you to do that," I mean, that's not listening to your customers, is it?
No. So I think while we're on this, we might be as well touch on you guys doing the work, giving the jobs, sharing the jobs without the approval of their dispatchers. So could you explain to me how that works?
But essentially, we've identified a piece of capability that allows us to essentially put jobs into someone's system and take jobs out of someone's system in a completely legitimate way that allows us to essentially do the same full experience that we do on Cordic to Cordic.
Does it use the dispatcher's API?
No, it does not.
Okay.
And I know that, again, we're seen as competitors. I've got the utmost respect for the guys at iCabby and all the other places, maybe less so with our friends that are owned by Uber.
Yeah.
But we would never do anything that we're not allowed to do that's illegitimate.
Okay.
We're using legitimate technology. We're responding to our customers' needs and the industry's needs, and we're only doing it because they're demanding it, and the dispatch companies are refusing to participate. We still, as I say, we would love to have that conversation, and I open an invitation again right here now to those guys to get round the table, and for the good of the industry. And this is nothing to do with, well, Cordic need to do this. This is what we think is the right thing for the industry, and we will money where our mouths are. We're willing to do this in partnership from a fully commercial perspective with the others to if they wish to do it. If they don't, that's fine, because we can continue down the path we are.
If you look at this, right, so we've had this job sharing capability now for a long time, and we're developing it further with what Sam's just said there. Is it coming? Well, if it wasn't coming, why would iCabby be doing what they're doing? They see the need in it. They absolutely see the need in it, just as we see the need in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not so much at AutoCab, okay, but they see the need in it. So why are we not doing it across platform to sort of, bring that to the marketplace quicker to help the fleets who are struggling now? Because they're struggling, as we sit here, fleets are struggling now because we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that's coming. There's a realization that it's the way to go. That they're doing a lot of effort on it, just as we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I reached out to the dispatchers to find out comments on Super Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think these over the next couple of months, I think this is going to be quite prevalent in the market, and I think this is a great opportunity for you guys to address these if you're willing to do that. Yeah. So I reached out to them, and one of them simply said, "Our comment is no comment." I think everyone can guess who that was. And then another one said they're going to put out their own statement shortly, and this is something that they've been working on. I've got another one. I'm going to read you this out. Any this I think, Simon, for you to take note of. Any unauthorized use of our API is at risk of being switched off. That was on the API. For a number of reasons, we do not allow unapproved third parties to use our customers' usernames and passwords to access our platform. Foremost among these are security, GDPR, and data protection. We also do not allow any automated or unauthorized scraping of our platform or any other method of extracting data without our explicit approval, and this again would be a breach of our terms of service. So that is what one of them said to me, and another one who asked me not to do anything as an official statement yet because they want to put one out of respect. But ultimately, from the sounds of it is, and again, you will know how you're doing it and you don't want to share and that's completely up to you, but they sound pretty aggy about the way they're going to handle it, as if almost to say they're either going to go to their customers or to legally to have this turned off because they ultimately believe they can. If that's the case, are you not worried? So if it was me, I'd be worried I was almost building on sand. Does that make sense? Look,
my only comment would be, and this is what customers are asking for. And so essentially, if they're saying that they're going to stop this, they're going to stop that, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going against their customers, right? And I don't think in a world where, as you say, people can switch dispatch systems, that's a particularly good idea.
This is what I was trying to say, that for me, and I'll reiterate, I think that if these companies are going to be putting out statements, etc., and it's going to be in the coming months, that you obviously have the ear of the industry because a lot of people listen to this. So ultimately, what do you? So
is that a statement to us in the letter that's coming to us, just a private letter, as a statement to the fleets? In other words, are we saying to the fleets in the bully boy tactic, you can't do this?
I asked.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous to tell any of your customers, isn't it?
And I tell you why. Because you might be wondering why I did it. So if you think about before I do any one of these podcasts, I always want to make sure I've got all angles, backgrounds. And do you remember when Akil was on and I did I pulled out the list about Asian customers and things, and I wanted to compare it, because when Simon was on stage at the PHTM, right, you saw Bob and Safa's reaction on stage. Yeah, okay. I take it that was quite surprising to you.
Bob's not going to deny it because Bob's his own man. After they came off the stage, Bob came down and Bob, quite rightly, wasn't happy about what he was doing. Yeah, okay.
Well, I wouldn't say quite rightly.
Well, from his perspective, shall we say, yeah, okay. But what Bob said is, I don't know why you didn't come to us first and ask us. And I said, Bob, we came to you first and asked you.
Right.
So it's a bit disingenuous to say that we haven't come to ask you. We did come to ask you, Bob. Bob knows that. We sat in the office there, a load of guys to ask him, yeah. So he's probably surprised about what we've done and the fact that we've achieved it. Yeah, okay. But we did come and ask you. And the door's open and we'd like the conversation.
Ultimately, we've, and I again, look, as Phil said, he's apologised if, I wouldn't, let's not name any individuals, if anybody did anything inappropriate in the past. But since I've been here, no one has. And we have approached in a very, very collaborative way with iCabby particularly, but not just with iCabby. And, we've been rebuffed, right? And people are saying they want it. And let's see, look, Super Yes is now live, right? By the way, this is an interesting stat that your listeners might want to hear. We were the first software provider to this industry that enabled an iCabby fleet to share with another iCabby fleet, right? Is that a bad thing? Right, we're now sharing. We've now got Cordic fleets sharing with iCabby fleets and giving those iCabby fleets a lot of work. Right? Is it right for a dispatch provider, whether it be us or anybody else, to turn around to that fleet that's getting work and saying we're going to switch this off? So you're basically saying I want to do damage. I want to do damage to my customers.
I think the only other thing I would say is from a dispatcher's point, and imagine if it was yourself, right? Ultimately. Do I agree with you what's right for the fleet? Yes. Okay. So I'd give you that part. But the other part I would say is the taxi companies don't own the dispatch system. So ultimately, would I, for example, I run the...
No, but they buy a dispatch system to help them move their work around.
Well,
so if you're on EE now and EE say you can't watch YouTube.
Yeah.
They don't do it like that, do they? So if as a dispatch company, if I've got work and I want to pass it to my mate down the road, years ago it might have been by telephone, but it's not for a dispatch company to say you can't do that through our system. They can say that.
I was just going to say,
but that's counterproductive to the industry and counterproductive to them, isn't it?
Yeah. So if EE said to me that I can't watch YouTube,
you'd move.
Exactly. So it's up to EE have the right to tell me that I can't watch YouTube, but I have the right to say, well, okay, well, that's I don't want to.
Well, EE is smarter than that, aren't they? They let you watch YouTube.
I don't want to be with them. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, that's what I'm trying to get.
Smarter than that. They let you watch YouTube, so they used to retain you as a customer, don't they?
Yeah. I know. I get that. I get the argument ultimately, and I think, and I'm not talking about you guys, and I mean sometimes with fleets and stuff like that, people forget. Because a lot of times people will say to me, oh, well, this is the right thing for the industry or for the good of the industry. But we're talking about large, profitable organizations who have got their own commercial interests to worry about. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Right. Okay. So
answer me this.
Sure.
Right? How does it impact commercially negatively for a dispatch provider? So in a world where we're continuing as we are.
Yeah.
Okay, we've now made it possible for an iCabby fleet that wants to share to stay on iCabby and share with his neighbour down the road that's on another dispatch system, right? They don't have to move. They're less likely to move now because they don't need to, right? So how on earth is that impacting a dispatch provider commercially?
Let's go more basic than that. What's happening there is that drivers on them fleets are earning money.
Okay.
And from that, the fleet owners are earning money. So that's the business we're in as operators.
So you said earlier that an iCabby fleet can share work with, the first time they happened was on your network, right?
Correct.
Okay. Will they continue to do that rather than using iCabby Exchange?
That's up to the fleets.
It's up to the fleets.
No, but would that not have a negative impact on iCabby as a commercial business?
That's up to iCabby, right?
No, but do you think that's a fair comment?
How do iCabby get paid? iCabby and Cordic and all of us, they all get paid by the operator. And the operator's got to be able to cover his work with the customers, and he's got to be able to make sure that his drivers are earning money. And from that, that's how he makes his living, how he can pay ICAB, Cordic, or whatever.
Yeah.
So the operator's in business to service, his drivers and his customers. And if an extra way to do it is pass a job down the road or get a job from down the road,
Lads,
then who is any dispatcher there to say, you can't do that?
I wouldn't say that.
It's about that's really all about capturing a corner of the market for themselves, rather than thinking about, hang on a minute, these guys are getting battered by Uber.
I wouldn't turn around to you guys and say that you guys have done anything wrong or whatever. You've already expressed clearly that you tried to go through the front door.
Yep.
Right. So you made all approaches to. That's why I wanted to
on more than one
occasion.
Yeah,
You've tried that. Okay.
Yeah.
You've done that, and then obviously you've got the technology to be able to do it the way you've done it. So that's not for me to say something negative that you've done something wrong, because ultimately, like, who am I to decide what's right or wrong? But all I'm trying to get at is there is the commercial argument, because obviously you said, well, what's the negative if a fleet books a job on Super Yes rather than the iGo network or the iCabby exchange? There is a direct commercial detriment to those two dispatch providers.
Where's that? Because
unless I'm wrong, please.
Well, that job has been booked or not at the moment. It's no, I can't do it.
It's no different from. I'm trying to think of an analogy, right? Maybe it's like I can go to lots of. I want a burger, right? And there are lots of places that sell burgers, but other places might sell. Well, one place might only sell burgers, another place might sell burgers and fish and chips.
Yeah.
If I choose to go to the place that sells burgers and fish and chips, that's what free market economics is about, right? Ultimately, if we've got a product that's better than iCabby and the fleets want to use that product, then iCabby need to up their game and improve their product, right? And that's how it is. That's why there's iCabby and AutoCab are the two big dispatch systems, because maybe their marketing's better than us. They've done a better job of that. That's how the economy works. And so ultimately, if a fleet chooses to use our system ahead of theirs, well, they have a choice. We've held our hands out multiple times. Come do this with us. Those hands won't be held out forever. No. Right? But if they want to come and do it with us, come and do it with us. If you don't, then you can't turn around and say, if an iCabby fleet chooses to use our system, that's wrong. That's the fleet's choice.
None of this stops companies still being selling dispatch systems, just like banks. People still move from banks, or people move from cars and phones, don't they?
Yeah.
None of that stops that. That's always going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah? And again, lads, I'll say it to the pair of you. I've countless times said that it needs to happen. Ultimately, it's the only way for us to survive, and I get that, and I appreciate that.
I know you do, yeah.
I've got to ask you, what is, let's say, for example, if what I'm hearing is right and these statements come out and whatnot, and they do attempt to switch it off, etc., what would be your reaction to that? You've
got people out there, not just people that are influential in the business, people that who think this is the way forward. But you've got customers. Customers will do what they need to do if us as dispatch providers do things which are in contradiction to their needs as a business. And I think this has been really helpful, because ultimately you guys have got an opportunity now. You've managed and I think you've done it really well to portray it out to the industry exactly where you're at. And I think that was important to me, because when I said to you how is Cordic qualified and all that, and why I wanted to ask you about the history of the network, the reason I did that is because when people turn around and say, well, who are you to have it, and who are you? Yeah. Well, you've got a fucking good history of putting it together, and you're doing it successfully in London. I'm just not sure where this is going to go now, or how it would be. But I'll be honest with you, I wish you all the success in the world with it, mate. The both of you guys. What you've done in the past 12 to 18 months has been spectacular, especially and going back to Cordic, the aesthetics of it and fixing that and making it a solid product. I just close with this, right? Yeah. In my opinion, you'll judge us at the end of the year at your awards, but in my opinion, this is the biggest innovation that this industry has had for probably a decade, right? We're not making nice fancy bits of AI that don't actually benefit the fleet. We're not changing the colors on our system to make it look prettier just because. We're going out and we're solving the biggest problem that the industry faces, and this is in my opinion, the biggest innovation that this trade has had for probably about 10 years.
Yeah.
And so for our competitors to be sour grapes about it all and want to turn it off, whatever that means, it is in complete contradiction of what their customers and our customers and those people that are influential in the business are saying is the right thing to do. So I'm really hopeful, and I say it one last time, that the common sense prevails. We can get round the table with these guys, and we can figure a way that makes commercial sense for everyone to do this. But if not, we're doing what we want to do. We innovated. We created a new product. We've been told before you don't innovate anymore. Well, we're innovating. So people should be positive about it instead of trying to knock things down. We don't bash anyone else. We don't knock down other people's products. We focus on staying our lane and serving our customers. And if everybody did that, I think all of the industry would be in a much better place.
And from an operator's point of view, yeah, of course I want to share work and I want some work of other people. Of course I want to help people out, yeah. It's how I survive in the industry, it's how they survive in the industry. That's at the operator level, not the dispatch level. And it's the dispatch levels currently that I'm not really seeing the sense in.
Going on about the awards, you've not put in a nomination yet, so
well then
you're gonna put a nomination to win that. Make sure you do.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Maybe a fleet will do it for us.
Hopefully. No, seriously, lads, I've got to say, obviously, Simon, not known you for long, but the time I have been incredibly impressed with what you've done with the industry and what you're doing at Cordic. So phenomenal work. Phil, mate, you're an old pal, and and you will continue to be. So honestly, lads, whatever happens, wishing you guys the best. I know you're obviously not known you as long, but I've known your reasons for what you do in the industry, mate, and I couldn't commend it enough. So
thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers.
Oops, easy. There we go.
One for the road. One for the road, are you ready? Let us sit and talk. Take a sip and talk. Take a sip. One for the road, everybody. Let us sit and talk.